Victoria. My heart was still pounding as I closed the door behind me, retreating to the privacy of my room. The events of the morning were almost too surreal to process. I couldn't believe I had woken up in Ethan's bed, surrounded by his daughters and Samantha. What on earth had I been thinking? The storm had been terrifying, but I should have handled it better than crawling into bed with strangers. Going in there with Maya and Lily at that time seemed perfectly reasonable. Laying down with them? Why would I do that? I should have woken Ethan and let him handle his daughters. I don't even really know them. I acted way more familiar than I had any right to. How embarrassing. Taking a deep breath, I paced the room, trying to calm down. My thoughts were a mess, and I knew I needed to get a grip. I thought I should probably check messages, even just to distract myself. But as I reached for my phone, the reality of my situation hit me. I didn't have it. It was likely still in the limo, lost amidst the chaos of last night. Frustration bubbled up inside me. I needed my phone. I couldn't function without it. The idea of going into town to get a replacement was daunting, but it had to be done. I needed to stay connected, especially after what had happened. Then I realized my tablet. I had it, and the Wi-Fi was working. Thank goodness. I decided to call Louis, my ever-reliable assistant. If anyone could help me get my head back on straight, it was him. After a few rings, his familiar face appeared on the screen, a mix of concern and curiosity in his expression. My lady. How your absence has brought gloom to my Victoria. What on earth happened? You look. Well, not yourself, Louis exclaimed, his French accent more pronounced in his surprise. Louis, I'm a mess, I admitted, feeling a bit of relief just hearing his voice. We nearly died last night. His eyes widened. Died? Like dead died? Not like socially dead. Like actually dead. Explain immediately. I quickly filled him in on the storm, the crash, and how Ethan had saved us. I described how we had ended up at the chateau with Ethan, Samantha, and injured James, and his 2 daughters. I explained how I had laid down last night only for the lightning and thunder to get out of control, and how, in my panic, I had somehow ended up in bed with him. The more I talked, the more absurd it all sounded. Victoria, mon Dieu, that sounds terrifying. Louis exclaimed, his usual flair for the dramatic coming through. But you're safe now, yes? Yes, we're safe, I reassured him. But this morning. Louis, I woke up in his bed. It was the most mortifying moment of my life. Louis raised an eyebrow, a teasing smile playing on his lips. Ah. So this Ethan is quite the charmer, then? I shook my head, trying to downplay it. No, it's not like that. I hardly know him. Oh no. Well, I know how that sounds, but that's not how. And Ethan, is he a charmer? I would exactly say no. He's just. Well, he's very different. But that's not the point. I'm mortified, Louis. It should not have happened. He nodded, his tone softening. Darling, it sounds like you were scared and vulnerable. It's understandable. But now, you need to regroup. You're Lady Victoria Harrington, after all. This is just a minor hiccup. Hopefully, the sex was good, yes. It is about time that you felt pleasure that comes with carnal activity. I face-bombed. I didn't have sex with him, Louis. Samantha was there. Louis smiled. Oh, kinky. His comment made me blush furiously, and I swatted at him through the screen. Louis, stop it. This is serious. We didn't sleep together. Well, okay, we did sleep together, but we only slept. Samantha, his 2 daughters, Lily, Mia, and I all ended up in his bed because of the bloody storm, which is fine for normal people, but I am Lady Harrington. What if the tabloids hear about this? He chuckled, clearly enjoying my discomfort. All right, no need to get your panties in a twist. You are wearing panties, right? Yet I digress. First, tell me what happened. Everything. The crash, the rescue, and how you ended up sleeping with 4 other people. Then you tell me about this young man. I took a deep breath and tried to focus on describing the events, everything including how we ended up in Ethan's bed. Next, I spent some time trying to describe Ethan to Lewis. The question was, how do I describe Ethan? I thought about him. He has a rough persona. I think he has a handsome face with a strong jawline and piercing blue eyes, though the hot factor can be difficult to see under the facial hair. There was a kindness in his gaze that contradicted his rough exterior. Soft words of comfort for a stranger that he didn't know. He didn't know me, which I found odd. Honestly, I struggled to put into words the strange mix of emotions he stirred within me. He comes across as complicated, I finally settled on, realizing how inadequate the description sounded. Lewis arched an eyebrow. Complicated? Love, that is the queen of all non-explanations. I sighed, feeling the weight of the morning's events pressing down on me. He's just different. He's been through a lot, you can tell. But honestly, I can only give you my impressions because I don't really know him. I know he loves his daughters, and they absolutely adore him. I think it's obvious that he has lived a rough life. That's about all. What little I know is mostly context from his daughters. Lewis nodded thoughtfully. A single father and a study in contrasting elements. How intriguing. And how did he react to waking up with you in his bed? He didn't really react, though he appeared quite amused by it, I admitted. Big fat jerk, he could have at least been a bit excited. What was that, Lady Harrington? Nothing. I straightened myself. So, what's the plan now? I took a deep breath, feeling a flicker of determination amidst the embarrassment and confusion. I need a phone replacement. And then? I don't know. I have no idea what Ethan must think of me now, but I cannot have him talking to the press. It's the last thing I need. It's already going to be a mess keeping the accident out of the news. People already think I'm unstable because of Henry's death. We're just sort of getting past it. Lewis nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps you should talk to him, explain yourself. I groaned at the thought. I don't even know where to begin. Well, start with I'm sorry, Lewis suggested with a shrug. Honesty goes a long way. Honesty? Please tell me that you are being cheeky, I said, taking a deep breath. Or is that seriously all you got for me? Lewis grinned. The classics are good for a reason. But in all candor, you need to understand Ethan, and he really needs to understand you. The only way that happens is through honest communication, as difficult as it can be sometimes. So, what will you do? I slapped my face with both of my palms. Not hard enough to hurt, but hard enough to make a sound. Then I took a deep breath. I needed to get a grip. I'm going to freshen up, then figure out how to get into town and get a new phone. I can't go without one. Of course not, Lewis agreed. Then, I said resolutely, I will talk to Ethan, and hopefully, we can put this mess behind us. Lewis nodded. You've been through quite the ordeal. Tell me how things go with tall, dark, and roguish. I rolled my eyes. Thank you, Lewis. I'll keep you updated. Please do, he said warmly. And if you need anything, just call. I'm here for you. I ended the call and stared at the tablet for a moment, trying to steady my racing heart. Lewis was right, I needed to pull myself together. First, a bath, a good scrubbing, and washing my hair. Then, I would figure out the rest. I wasn't going to let one terrifying night throw me completely off balance. I was Lady Victoria Harrington, and I could handle this. As soon as I figured out what this was. Taking a deep breath, I headed to the bathroom and drew a bath. The warm water was a balm to my nerves, easing the tension in my shoulders and helping me regain my composure. As I stepped out of the bath, I felt a renewed sense of clarity. I was ready to face whatever the day would bring. I took my time getting ready, knowing that presenting my best self was crucial, especially after the mortifying circumstances of the morning. I selected an outfit that was both sophisticated and understated, something that would remind me of who I was, a woman of poise and grace, no matter the situation. Though probably more formal than necessary, I chose a tailored, cream-colored blouse with delicate lace detailing at the collar and cuffs, paired with a high-waisted, navy blue pencil skirt that accentuated my slender figure. The skirt's fabric hugged my hips just enough to showcase my curves without being too revealing. I finished the look with a pair of classic, nude pumps that added just the right amount of height. As I stood in front of the mirror, I took a moment to assess my appearance. My dark blonde hair, blown out and soft, fell in loose waves over my shoulders. I decided to leave it down, allowing it to frame my face and soften the overall look. My skin, always fair, had a natural glow, enhanced by the light touch of makeup. I had applied just a hint of blush to bring color to my cheeks and a swipe of mascara to highlight my green eyes. I added a pair of simple pearl earrings and a delicate gold bracelet, keeping the accessories minimal yet elegant. The overall effect was one of effortless sophistication, a look that would put me back in control of the situation. Satisfied with my appearance, I took a deep breath and gave myself a final once-over in the mirror. The woman staring back at me was a far cry from the panicked mess I had been just hours earlier. I was Lady Victoria Harrington, after all, and I was determined to live up to that title.
Ethan. After breakfast, the atmosphere in the house seemed to lighten. The awkwardness from earlier, with everyone crowded into my bed, was fading into the background. I watched as the girls ran off to explore, their laughter bouncing off the walls. I focused on clearing the table and tidying up the kitchen, trying to keep my mind from wandering. It wasn't easy, though. Samantha and Victoria were still in the kitchen, lingering as if they had something on their minds. Samantha kept glancing my way, and it was difficult to read her expression. Victoria, on the other hand, appeared to be trying to keep herself busy, but there was a tension in her shoulders that gave her away. "I suppose we should figure out what to do next," Victoria said, breaking the silence. She turned to Samantha, but I could tell she was addressing both of us. "We're a bit stranded without a driver or phone, aren't we?" Samantha nodded, her gaze still focused on me. "Yes, it seems we are. Perhaps we should head into town and see about getting our phones replaced. It appears the rain is letting up. It will be wet, but it's supposed to clear up in the next couple of hours. I have my backup phone, but it's very basic. And, of course, we need to make arrangements to get the car out of the ditch." I looked out the window at the storm still raging outside. It was relentless. I wasn't exactly thrilled about the idea of heading out in this weather again, especially after what happened last night. But I also knew they needed help, and there wasn't anyone else around to give it. "Do you think you could help us, Ethan?" Samantha asked, her voice pulling me from my thoughts. "We're a bit helpless at the moment, and I'd hate to impose, but we could really use a hand getting into town." I set down the dish I was drying and turned to face them. "Sure, I can drive you into town. It's not a problem." I paused, considering the situation. But it might be better to wait until this lets up a bit. The roads are pretty bad, and I'd hate for us to end up in another ditch. Victoria nodded, a hint of relief in her expression. "You're right, of course. We'll just have to wait it out." "Thank you, Ethan." "I really appreciate it," Samantha added, offering me a smile that I couldn't help but return. "No problem," I said, meaning it. "I should finish cleaning this up and maybe take a shower." Victoria smiled, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. "That sounds lovely. I think I'll find Maya and Lily and see what they are up to. Maybe I can keep them out of too much trouble." Samantha laughed softly, a sound that was oddly comforting. "Good luck with that. I think I will join you. What kind of mischief do two young ladies get into?" With that, they each made their way out of the kitchen. I watched them go, feeling a strange mix of emotions. This wasn't exactly how I pictured my week, but somehow, despite the chaos, it felt right. For now, I focused on cleaning up the kitchen.
Maya. The movie room was like nothing I'd ever seen. It wasn't just a home theater, it was a full-fledged cinematic experience. The room was enormous, with high ceilings and deep red velvet drapes framing the massive screen. The plush, oversized seats were arranged in perfect rows, each equipped with reclining options, cup holders, and even small trays for snacks. The walls were lined with dark wood paneling, giving the space an old-world, elegant charm, while the lighting was dim and perfectly adjusted to create an ambience of pure indulgence. "Lily, this is amazing," I whispered, my voice filled with awe. Lily's eyes were just as wide as mine. "It's like our own private movie theater." We wasted no time exploring every corner of the room, testing out the chairs, fiddling with the controls, and marveling at the selection of movies. There were classic films, the latest blockbusters, and even a collection of timeless animations that made both of us squeal with excitement. Victoria and Samantha joined us a few minutes later, both of them looking around with amused smiles. Samantha plopped down on one of the seats with a playful grin. "Well, ladies, what are we watching first?" Maya and Lily exchanged looks. "Aunt Victoria, Samantha, you look really nice. Are you sure you want to watch movies with us?" Victoria and Samantha exchanged a glance. Samantha was the one who answered. "We do seem a bit overdressed for a movie day, don't we?" "Yeah. Not that you don't look really pretty, but maybe we should all put back on our pajamas?" They all agreed, and 15 minutes later, they were all back in the movie room. Victoria grabbed the oversized remote. "All right, my little darlings. What shall it be?" "Action thriller." Lily called out, "or horror." Everyone looked at Lily, bewildered. "What?" she said. "It changed my life?" Samantha raised an eyebrow. "Like, as in the demonic clown, it?" "Stephen King is a genius," Lily nodded. I snorted. "How about something funny?" Victoria, who had settled into a chair next to Samantha, nodded in agreement. I could use a good laugh. The movie started, and the room filled with laughter, gasps, and delighted chatter. We had chosen a classic comedy that had everyone in stitches, the perfect way to forget about the storm outside. For a while, we were all just a group of women enjoying each other's company, letting go of the tension from the night before. We got through the first movie and started a second one from Disney with a talking crab and a demigod. Before long, everyone was commenting, talking, and singing along to the songs. The second movie ended, and we decided to do a romantic movie one about sparkling vampires. Lily loves that movie. Team Jacob, for sure. We watched parts 1 and 2 in relative silence, excluding the girly commentary. Partway through the third installment, Samantha turned to me with a curious look in her eye. "Maya, this may not be the right time, but I was hoping you might tell me a bit about your dad." I looked up, caught off guard by the question. "Sure, what do you want to know?" Samantha took a deep breath. She sounded nervous. "Honestly, I don't even know where to start." "You tell me. What do I need to know about him?" I glanced at Lily, who was munching on some popcorn, before answering. "Dad's pretty awesome. He and Mom had me when he was super young, so he has worked for like a really long time. He was in the military. He won't tell us what he did there. He had to quit because of an injury. He was gone for a while because of deployment, but I don't remember it very well." "I don't really remember it at all," added Lily. I continued. Daddy's had a rough he has had it rough for a while. He's been through a lot, but he's always there for us. He's strong, kind, and really good at, like, everything." "Yeah," Lily chimed in. "He's the best. He cooks, he takes care of us, and he can fix anything. And he's super tough. The boys and even some of the parents at school are scared of him." Samantha smiled, leaning in slightly. "He sounds like a great guy. What's his favorite thing to do?" "Cooking is up there," I said with a grin. "He loves it. He's always trying new recipes and making the best food ever. Wait until you try the PAE." Lily considered it. "He also likes the outdoors, fishing, hunting, but only with a bow. He says hunting with a gun is cheating." "What else?" He likes old movies and the water. Oh, and old cars. He really likes cars. I laughed at this. Daddy would collect cars if he could. Victoria, who had been quietly listening, hesitated for a moment before asking, "What about your mom?" I noticed yesterday when I mentioned her, you two quickly changed the subject. Is it okay to ask about her? Lily and I both tensed slightly at the mention of our mom. The thought of her made me angry. I took a deep breath. I knew that Daddy wouldn't want us to talk badly about her. Lily shifted uncomfortably beside me. You can ask. It's just hard, I said softly, trying to keep the mood light. She is with that other guy now, and we don't like him much. He likes to buy us stuff but only to show off. He's a creep. Dad has full custody because apparently, he is important to some people. Or something. I am not sure. We hate going there, said Lily in a soft voice. Victoria nodded, sensing the tension. Can I ask how long your mom and dad have been separated? I thought for a moment. A couple of years now. The first year was really hard. Dad did all sorts of odd jobs after his company closed, and well, after the company shut down. It took a while, but we made it work. Dad will pretty much do anything to make money to take care of us. Mom doesn't work, so her child support isn't much. Dad won't tell me how much. He says it's not kids' business. But I know it's the kind that jingles and not folds. I understand, she said gently. She paused, then added with a curious look, your mom remarried. What about your dad? Does he have a girlfriend? He must have plenty of women interested in him. I noticed Lily's expression fall slightly, her smile fading. No. Daddy doesn't date, she murmured, her voice tinged with sadness. Actually, he's never dated. Samantha and Victoria exchanged a glance, their curiosity evident, but they didn't push further. I could tell they were trying to understand more about Dad, but there were some things we just didn't like talking about. I forced a smile. Like I said, our dad is the best. He gets approached, it happens a lot at our school when he is there. But he always tells us that the only women he needs in his life are us. I waffle. Sometimes it's cute. Sometimes it's annoying. Lily smiled like she was remembering something. There are a lot of single and divorced women that live near us. Dad is always helping people around the neighborhood. It's funny how hard they try to get his attention. But he never acts on any of the attention, I said. I am not sure he even notices it. I know it gets lonely, though. Mom hurt him. Bad. Samantha made a sad face but tried to hide it. That's really sad. Just as the conversation started to take a somber turn, the sound of thunder rumbled outside. The movie continued to play on the screen, but the momentary distraction brought a sense of foreboding to our cozy sanctuary. Lily shivered and instinctively leaned closer to me for comfort. Despite our efforts to maintain a cheerful atmosphere, the topic of our father's personal life lingered in the air like an unwanted guest. Samantha's next question hung unspoken between us, a heavy silence settling over the room. Suddenly, a loud crash interrupted our thoughts, causing us all to jump in surprise. The power flickered for a moment before plunging us into darkness. Samantha flicked on her phone light, as did I and Lily. In the dim glow, I could make out Victoria's worried expression. Lily clung to my arm, her nails digging in slightly as the tension in the room mounted. What was that? She whispered, her voice barely audible over the howling wind outside. I tried to sound reassuring as I patted her hand. It's just the lightning. Victoria and Samantha were by our sides in a moment. Victoria wrapped her arms around me, and Samantha held Lily. It felt really warm. Do not worry, child, said Victoria. The light will be back on in. The light turned back on. Victoria smiled at me. Backup generator. I gave Victoria a squeeze and said, why don't we get back to the dash? I paused. Just then, the rich, mouth-watering aroma of something delicious wafted into the room. My nose twitched, and my eyes widened as I realized what it was. Oh no. Lily sniffed the air, her eyes lighting up. The lasagna. She turned to me, eyes burning with desire. He did, Maya. He actually did. He told me he wasn't going to, but he did. In an instant, both of us were on our feet, scrambling out of the theater room with excitement. We have to get to the kitchen. I called over my shoulder, laughing as I ran. Victoria and Samantha exchanged amused glances before following us out. As we reached the kitchen, the scent of Dad's lasagna was even more intoxicating, filling the entire space with the promise of a meal made with love and expertise. I burst through the door, my eyes zeroing in on the oven. Sure enough, Dad was there, pulling out a tray of golden, bubbling lasagna, his expression one of focused concentration. You made the lasagna, Father, you lied to me. I exclaimed, my voice a mixture of awe and delight. Dad looked up, a satisfied smile playing on his lips. I did. Figured it was the perfect thing for a day like this. Lily clapped her hands together, practically bouncing with excitement. Can we eat it now, Dad? It smells so good. Dad chuckled, setting the tray on the counter to cool. You know the drill. It must settle first. Victoria and Samantha entered the kitchen, drawn by the irresistible aroma. Samantha's eyes widened as she took in the sight of the lasagna, her mouth practically watering. That looks incredible, Ethan, she said, genuine admiration in her voice. Dad wiped his hands on a towel, looking a bit bashful under the praise. Thanks. It's a family recipe, something my mom used to make. I've tweaked the recipe over the last couple of years. It's one of my signature dishes now. Victoria, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke up. If it tastes half as good as it smells, we're in for a real treat. Lily and I both nodded eagerly, already pulling out plates and silverware in preparation for the meal. The kitchen buzzed with the warm, homey energy of a family coming together, united by the simple joy of sharing food and laughter. As we all sat down to enjoy the lasagna, the storm outside seemed like a distant memory, replaced by the warmth and comfort of good food and even better company.
Samantha. The moment Ethan placed the lasagna on the table, the rich, savory aroma hit me like a tidal wave. I could already tell that this wasn't just any lasagna, it was something extraordinary. My stomach growled in anticipation as he served generous portions onto each of our plates, the golden, bubbly cheese stretching temptingly with every slice. But the lasagna was just the beginning. Next came a beautiful salad, a vibrant mix of greens sprinkled with crumbled goat cheese, thin slices of crisp apple, candied walnuts, and a drizzle of what I could only assume was some kind of homemade vinaigrette. It looked like it belonged in a gourmet restaurant, not a family kitchen. Ethan wasn't done yet. He placed a dish of corn on the table, but it wasn't just plain corn. No, this was something special, grilled to perfection, topped with a sprinkle of spices, a hint of lime, and a dusting of cheese. The garlic bread was the final touch, each piece golden and crispy, with just the right amount of buttery garlic spread that made my mouth water. I stared at the spread in disbelief. Ethan, this is incredible, I finally managed to say, my voice a bit shaky from the sheer awe of it all. He shrugged modestly, but I could see a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Just thought I'd make something nice for everyone. Nice? I echoed, almost in a daze. This is beyond nice. This is perfection. Without thinking, I grabbed my phone and snapped a few pictures of the meal. The presentation was so beautiful, I couldn't resist sharing it with my friends. As soon as the photos were sent, my phone practically exploded with responses. Olivia, OMG, where are you? Grace, did you hire a private chef? Natalie, that food looks amazing. Who made it? I grinned, like an idiot mind you, and quickly typed back. Samantha, believe it or not, Ethan. He made all of this. The replies came in almost immediately, filled with shock, disbelief, and a hint of envy. Olivia, no way. You're joking, right? Grace, wait, the guy who saved you last night? He's a chef too. Natalie.
Yum.
I chuckled at their reactions, realizing I probably sounded just as stunned as they were. But there was no time to dwell on it. Lily and Maya were already digging into their food with enthusiasm, and I didn't want to miss out. I took my first bite of the lasagna, and my taste buds practically exploded. The layers were perfect: tender pasta, rich, flavorful meat sauce, creamy ricotta, and just the right amount of mozzarella on top, all baked to golden, bubbly perfection. It was the kind of lasagna that made you want to close your eyes and savor every bite, which is exactly what I did. "Ethan," I said, my voice muffled by the food, "this is unreal. I can't believe how good this is." Across the table, Victoria was nodding in agreement, her expression one of pure bliss. "It's been a long time since I've had a meal this satisfying," she admitted. "You're really something, Ethan." He blushed slightly, clearly not used to this much praise. "I'm glad you like it. My mother would be very happy to hear the praise." As if the lasagna weren't enough, I reached for the salad next. The combination of the tangy goat cheese, the sweetness of the apple slices, and the crunch of the walnuts was divine. It was refreshing and light, the perfect complement to the richness of the lasagna. Next, I tried the corn dish. The smoky, grilled flavor with a hint of lime was a revelation. I didn't think I could be more impressed, but Ethan had proven me wrong yet again. Every bite was a new experience, a perfect balance of flavors that danced on my tongue. My phone buzzed again, pulling me out of my food-induced trance. Another message from Natalie. "Are you sure you don't want to bring him back with you?" I grinned, shaking my head at their antics. I knew they were half joking, but there was a part of me that couldn't help but agree. Ethan was full of surprises, and this meal was just the latest in a series of the unexpected. As the meal went on, the conversation flowed easily. We laughed, shared stories, and enjoyed every moment. Maya and Lily were hilarious. They had me laughing so hard that I had water coming out my nose. Ethan had a gift for storytelling. He told us a really funny story about his unit during his basic training that had us all on the edge of our seats. This family had so much joy being together, and I felt really fortunate to be included. I watched Ethan. My eyes kept coming back to him. He was laughing and smiling at his girls. Then me. Then Aunt Victoria. I don't even know what he was saying. I was just watching him. The way he moved. His eyes. His cheeks. I settled on his lips. I was watching his lips. They were nice lips. Full and well cared for. Guys with craggy lips are the worst. His looked soft. Supple. Inviting. I took another bite of the heavenly lasagna, and a thought crossed my mind, completely uninvited and utterly inappropriate. I should kiss him. Kiss Ethan with a big, fat, "Thank you for this amazing meal" kiss. Right on the lips, with maybe just a bit of tongue. Not too crazy. Just enough to get him to pull me in. Get his hands on my hips and butt. Maybe a little squeeze. I nearly choked on my food. What the hell was I thinking? I barely knew the guy, and here I was, fantasizing about planting one on him just because he could cook like a dream. I scolded myself internally, feeling my cheeks heat up. It was the food, it's not like that guy was saving my life or anything. I stopped again. Damn. He had already done that. Stop. This is nuts. You are not going to kiss Ethan. He is not even your type. He was the exact opposite. Still, I couldn't deny the pull I felt toward Ethan. He had saved us from a near disaster, gotten us to safety, and now he was feeding us like royalty. It was more than anyone could have expected, and I wanted to do something to show my appreciation. Something meaningful, something that would convey just how grateful I was. But kissing him? I wasn't that bold, and certainly not reckless enough to cross that line. No, I needed to find another way to thank him, something that didn't involve making a complete fool of myself. I stole a glance at Ethan, who was chatting easily with Victoria about some of the finer points of lasagna making. He was so relaxed, so at ease. It was then that I realized why Ethan seemed different, special. He wasn't trying to impress Victoria or me. He saved us because he was kind. He cooked for us because he enjoyed feeding people. He spoke with affection because he was simply affectionate. Damn this man. The realization intensified my desire to do something for him even more. But what? A gift? A kind word? A BJ? Something more? I bit my lip, trying to figure out what would make him feel as special as he'd made us feel with his brave actions, kind words, and this incredible meal. The idea of kissing him lingered in the back of my mind, tempting me in ways I wasn't prepared to handle. No, I needed to push that thought away, far away. This wasn't the time or place for something so impulsive. I would find another way to show my gratitude, something that didn't involve risking my dignity or our newfound friendship. But as I watched Ethan laugh at something Maya said, the idea of kissing him didn't seem quite as crazy as it had just a moment ago. Honestly, the guy had saved my life. In that light, kissing was the bare minimum. Now that I think about it, maybe I should just take him to bed. Use all his up and down. And side to side. And over under? That could be fun. Holy shit, what is wrong with me? I cannot take this single father to bed after knowing him for one day. I am not that type of girl. I took another bite of the lasagna, not really tasting it, and wondered what would it be like to act on that impulse? Would he be warm? Would he be affectionate? Would he be rough and take me, wrapping me in his arms, and... I stopped. I could very much feel the heat in my face. Are you okay, Samantha? Victoria's voice broke through my thoughts, pulling me back to reality. I blinked, realizing I had been staring at my plate for far too long. Oh, yes, just. Lost in thought, I replied with a smile, hoping no one could deduce the ridiculous path my mind had wandered down. Well, whatever you're thinking about, it must be good, Victoria teased lightly, her eyes sparkling with mischief. I laughed as my face blazed red, trying to brush it off. Just appreciating the meal, that's all. Victoria hummed, clearly not buying it but letting it slide. Ethan glanced over at me, his expression curious but kind. You sure everything is all right, Samantha? Perfect, I said quickly, smiling at him. The food is amazing, Ethan. Truly. I can't thank you enough. He smiled back, and for a moment, I felt that pull again, that crazy urge to do something impulsive and out of character. But I pushed it down, determined to keep my cool. You're welcome, he replied, his voice warm and genuine. I'm just glad you all enjoyed it. We continued eating, the conversation flowing easily around the table. But in the back of my mind, that little thought kept nudging me, reminding me that sometimes, the best way to show your appreciation is with something unexpected. But for now, I would keep those thoughts to myself and focus on the meal and on finding a way to show Ethan just how much this meant to me, without crossing any lines. The kiss and bed fun, I decided, would stay a fantasy. At least for now. I should ask Ethan about his recipe. Victoria. As I savored the last bite of lasagna, a thought floated through my mind, one that was both ridiculous and entirely out of character. I could marry this man if he keeps cooking like this. He would be an amazing lord. I could already tell. I almost laughed out loud at the absurdity of it. I, Victoria Harrington, consider marriage to a man that I barely knew and who was way younger than me because of a meal? The very idea was preposterous. I had been courted by the most refined and sophisticated men in Europe, the US, and even some from Southeast Asia, men who knew how to charm a lady with words and gestures, not with a spatula and a saucepan. And yet, here I was, sitting in my own chateau, contemplating how delightful life might be with a man like Ethan around, simply because he had made the best lasagna I had ever tasted. It was ludicrous, of course. But I couldn't entirely dismiss the notion. There was something about Ethan that was undeniably appealing beyond his culinary skills, that is. He had a calm, steady presence that put me at ease, even in the midst of the chaos we had been through last night. And the way he interacted with his daughters, with such warmth and patience, was a quality I found deeply attractive. Honestly, it made me miss my Henry. And no, I am not considering marriage. It was just a passing thought, a silly musing brought on by a very full stomach and an even fuller heart. After all, it wasn't every day that I was taken care of, that someone else handled the details and made sure everything was perfect. That was usually my role, the one who ensured everyone else was comfortable and happy. And yet, here was this man, this rugged, unassuming man who had stepped in and taken over with such ease and grace. Calm down, Victoria. It's a meal. Rein it in. I glanced over at Ethan as he spoke with Samantha, his face animated as he described the recipe for the lasagna. It was a mirror of the conversation he and I just had. It didn't matter that we had just discussed the fine points of lasagna and cooking. He was still completely absorbed in the conversation, so passionate about something as simple as a dish. Seeing him like that, it was hard not to be charmed. And that was what worried me. Because, if I allowed myself to think about it too much, I might just start to think about life with Ethan. Who does that? Who pictures themselves with someone they only just met? Silly. I am still in mourning over my husband. Maybe I needed to get laid, as Samantha said. Now wouldn't that be a scandal? I took a deep breath, strange thoughts lingering in the back of my mind. A life where I didn't have to be the one in charge all the time, where someone else could take care of things for once, sounded appealing. And if that someone happened to be a man who could cook like this, well, it was just icing on the cake, wasn't it? But no, I couldn't let myself get carried away. It was just the food and a near-death experience talking. That was all. There was no need to pursue rash decisions or entertain any wild notions. Still, even if it was just a fleeting thought, it was a pleasant one. And it made me feel lighter, somehow. Less burdened by everything that had happened in the past year. Victoria, are you all right? Ethan's voice broke through my thoughts, pulling me back to the present. I blinked, realizing I had been lost in my own musings. Oh, yes, quite all right, I replied with a smile. Just appreciating the meal. He smiled back, and there it was again, that warm, steady feeling that I couldn't quite shake. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Enjoyed it? That was an understatement. It was more than just enjoyment, it was a revelation. But I wasn't about to say that out loud. Instead, I simply nodded and smiled, keeping my thoughts to myself. And as the conversation around the table continued, I let myself indulge in the fantasy just a little longer. Because at that moment, it didn't seem so impossible after all. And if a man could cook like this, well, who could blame a woman for letting her thoughts wander? I also giggled at that. Maybe I should simply take Ethan to bed and be done with it. Now that was a wicked thought.